A lot of hand-to-hand fighting. The nights on Pelileu were like nightmares. The Japanese were great infiltrators. They would infiltrate the lines, and there was a lot of knife work and bayonet work at night.
These are the frontline testimonies of a generation that came together to put their lives on the line to protect our freedoms. We owe it to them to always remember World War II. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. These 3 things will help this channel continue to put out new videos every week. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber in order to help us fund travel to interview these incredible soldiers. And please reach out if you know any pro-veteran businesses that would be interested in sponsoring a video.
Why, hello, my name is Colonel Schott, United States Marine Corps retired. I was in the Pacific for 2.5 years, approximately. I was in the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, which was part of the 1st Marine Division. I never thought I would make it, I'll tell you that. I didn't, I measured my time during the war when I was out in the Pacific by the minute. 5 minutes was a long-term planning. So I feel that I'm very fortunate, and I'm just a very fortunate person. The day I got hit, we were up in this area called the Five Sisters. There was a ridge there. We were on the military crest of the ridge. I wanted to see what was on the other side. So I got my platoon sergeant. I said, let's see what we can find on the other side of this ridge. So there was a platoon sergeant. I went out in front, up to the top of the ridge, stuck our heads up over the top. I was just about to point something out to my platoon sergeant. Our heads were that far apart. We were both in the prone position, peeking over the top of the ridge. A sniper got him right between the eyes. Our heads were that far apart. So, right next to me. So he was killed, and I got the hell out of there. I went back, to where my platoon was. I had to leave him there until we took the ridge. It was Platoon Sergeant Wilson, Staff Sergeant Wilson. He came in as a replacement for Pelileu. I think he was a kind of a laid-back NCO. He seemed to have the respect of the platoon, and I was impressed with him, and I thought he was a fine NCO. You become accustomed to it. Life becomes very cheap. You have to experience it to know. You lose your best friend, and the next day you try to get it out of the computer. You have your mission, particularly an officer. He has to lead his troops. Well, when I was wounded, I had about half of my platoon left, or less. Maybe about 10 or 12 people left out of my 44. I was setting them up in a defensive position for the night. I had a heavy machine gun crew assigned to me, attached to me. So I was pointing out to the machine gunners where they wanted to set up their field of fire and the areas to cover. I got a little insect or something under my arm. Actually, it was this arm. I was pointing out an area for the line of fire. I got hit with a mortar fragment right in the arm. Now, it penetrated in the arm, but had I not had my arm there, it would have gone into here. So the fates do work very strangely in the fog of war. Usually shrapnel will nest itself within the arm because it's a piece of metal that is spinning around, and it makes a bigger hole than a bullet will, a more ragged hole, and it'll get stopped by a bone or something like that. And that's what happened to me. Fractured my arm. It affected the nerve in my arm. I lost a lot of blood, so I had to I had to be evacuated to a hospital ship. From a hospital ship, took me to the Naval Hospital in New Caledonia. I was there as an ambulatory patient till the arm was healed. On the way back, I left the ship at Guadalcanal. Guadalcanal was really a base, one of our bases at that time. The war had passed it by. And I had to be admitted to the hospital of my malaria. I had about 10 or 12 incidents of malaria while I was out there, but this was a very severe one. So I was in the hospital at Guadalcanal for about 2 weeks with malaria. And then I went on to join the battalion, which was on Pelileu again, to stage 4, Okinawa. So when I got back to the battalion, I was made company commander of headquarters company, which I mentioned before. And I took headquarters company into Okinawa. And I was constantly griping to the battalion commander that I wanted to get back in a rifle company. So that's how I wound up in A company. The night before I got wounded, which was the 11th day of the battle, we were set up in a defensive perimeter. And we were sending flares out in front of us to light up the battlefield in front. But the Japanese hadn't filtered into our lines. He threw a grenade. Who was within arm's length of me. I was prone on the ground, just married to the ground, as close as I could get. Apparently the cone of dispersion went over me, but I was concussed. It blew my helmet off my head. I thought my body was going to blow apart, and this sensation landed for about, I thought I was dying. I thought all my innards were going to just be blown apart. That sensation landed maybe for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I was able to get my breath again, and so forth. I never called a corpsman or anything, but that was a pretty hairy experience. Then I didn't want to make a lot of noise. It was at night. I didn't want to give our positions away to anybody else. But fortunately, that was the end of that. I do think, though, that I'm practically deaf now without hearing aids. And I think that those little things that give you balance in your ear, I think they were damaged then. And now in my later years, I get vertigo from time to time because of those eardrums being damaged. And I think that's what happened to me. If we could help it, we did not fire weapons at night. The muzzle flashes would give our positions away. So if they did infiltrate, we would try to use mostly grenades and bayonets and K-bar knives. There was a lot of that kind of work at night, particularly on Pelileu and Okinawa. On New Britain and Guadalcanal, the Japanese would conduct these banzai charges at night. They would come charging at you en masse. And we loved that because we would have interlocking bands of fire and our BARs and so forth, and we could just pile them up in front of us. Then they decided it wasn't a very good idea to do that, so they changed their policy, and we didn't have those mass attacks on bonsais on Pelileu or Okinawa. There's very little fighting where you had exposed Japanese and exposed Marines. You had exposed Marines all the time, but these people were sealed up in caves, and the caves had apertures where they could fire weapons. They could fire enfilade fire, which is fire like that, crossfire, through the ridges. So we had to go up there at the face of the apertures of the ridges where these people were holed up. We had to use satchel charges. We had to use bazookas. We had to use tank infantry teams, and flame-throwing tanks. So we used all those kinds of things to get to those people in the ridges. When you did get to them, some of them had exits on the other side of the ridge, so we would not get them all. So they would move into another ridge, right? And they would reinforce the people on that ridge. So it was just bloody, up-close, personal fighting. I believe we all have our own little wars in our head. You pray to God you can get through it. I measured my time during the war when I was out in the Pacific by the minute. 5 minutes was a long-term planning. So I feel that I'm very fortunate, and I'm just a very fortunate person.
Hi everyone, my name is Rishi Sharma, and I need you to hear me out. You probably have no idea who I am and why I am even talking to you. So let me explain. I am the person who interviews all these World War II veterans that you see on the channel, and I am also the person who edits all these videos. I try to make the focus of these videos all on the veterans and their experiences in the war, because they deserve that undivided attention, so you will hardly hear my voice. Ever since I was a child, I've always been interested in World War II history, and I have always held a deep appreciation for the veterans who put their lives on the line in order for me to exist. I started interviewing World War II veterans in high school, and I instantly knew I had found my calling. I would literally ride a bike to a local retirement home every day after school to talk with these men. To meet these heroes face to face and to preserve their stories forever is the coolest thing in the world. After graduation, I decided that I wanted to interview every single World War II veteran of the Allied countries, and I just needed to figure out how to do it. Around that same time, the national news did a few stories about my mission, and I am blessed to have raised some money through GoFundMe and history grants. I also created a non-profit organization called Heroes of the Second World War, now known as Remember WWII. This was all in December of 2016. Since then, I have been on the road literally every day with just over 1,500 video interviews across basically all of the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. This is not just a job for me. This is my life. Every day I am researching World War II veterans, getting in touch with them to set up interviews, traveling to interview them, doing research to prepare for the interview, conducting the interview, acting as the cameraman and the sound guy, then editing the interview. This is also not a job because I have never taken a salary in these 5 years. All the money that is donated goes into traveling to meet and interview the World War II veterans. To cut costs, I sleep in the car. I limit myself to 1 meal per day and I drive very long distances instead of flying. I'm not saying this to complain because in my mind it is worth it to meet my heroes, but I want you all to understand the intense amount of effort that goes into producing these interviews as I am one person. It is also not practical when I can only edit the interviews based on when a library is open when it comes to getting more interviews on the channel. I need your help to get more World War II veterans preserved on camera. You see, despite my frugality, the GoFundMe money is hardly there anymore because of the amount of travel needed to get to these veterans plus camera expenses. For a while after this channel became popular, the YouTube ad money helped me stay afloat to keep conducting interviews. But YouTube has started arbitrarily demonetizing videos or flags them as age restricted and will not promote them on the algorithm, so that money has dried up. I'm in a very tough position to keep these interviews going, and I need you all to consider stepping up to make sure our history is not erased, and that the sacrifices made by these World War II veterans will always be at the forefront of society's mind. These interviews are too important not to do. I am asking you humbly to consider becoming a Patreon supporter of this channel or donating to the nonprofit, which is tax deductible. For as little as $5 a month, you will get access to full-length interviews, bonus clips, the opportunity to talk with the veterans, and have your name shown in the credits, plus more. I have a list of 3,400 World War II veterans that I am in touch with in some way that still need to be interviewed, and I need your help to do this. These men literally saved the world, and I am trying my absolute hardest to make sure their sacrifices will never be in vain. These heroes deserve the opportunity to literally live forever and have their future generations 200 years from now not just get to know their name, but also the way the veterans speak, their personality quirks, what kind of jokes they tell, and the war stories they share. Wouldn't you like to have a video of your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather sharing his life stories? Well, you have the opportunity to give that gift to a group that truly deserves it. Besides the obvious historical value of these interviews, they are also used as an educational resource. Many schools and universities have actually incorporated the interviews from the channel into their Second World War curriculum. We have almost 110,000 subscribers, yet we only have 9 patrons. That math does not add up. The audience of this channel seems to be very pro-military and pro-veterans, which is great. I see so many of the same people write comments of appreciation and admiration for the veterans on many of the videos. I would hope that these people would also want to help preserve the stories of the veterans who they genuinely profess sentiments for. So if you truly care about these World War II heroes and their stories, which I'm sure you do, please consider contributing to this cause. Also, I am trying to find any pro-veteran businesses that would like to become a sponsor of the channel in exchange for advertisements in a video. If you know of anyone who would like to advertise to potentially millions for a small amount of money, which all goes to getting World War II veterans on camera, then please reach out to me via this email address. Thank you for hearing me out on this, and thank you for watching these videos. I've included links to the news stories about my mission in the Patreon page in the description and comments. As always, God bless the World War II veterans.
Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. These 3 things will help this channel continue to put out new videos every week. Please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber in order to help us fund travel to interview these incredible soldiers. And please reach out if you know any pro-veteran businesses that would be interested in sponsoring a video. And thank you for watching.